I first met Bill Clinton when he was still the president. I was in Washington with some of the other writers from the West Wing, and during a tour of the Oval Office, he happened to step in just as I was scratching his dog Buddy behind the ears. I have a way with dogs, especially the easygoing breeds like Labs and Retrievers. When I was a kid, dogs used to go out of their way to follow me home. I don't mean once in a while, I mean all the time. From school to our house was just over a mile, and by the time I got home, if I didn't have 2 or at least 3 dogs following me, that meant something was wrong, like there was a thunderstorm or a tornado on its way. Usually, though, it just meant there was something wrong with me, like I was coming down with the flu or an ear infection, or because I'm a hypochondriac, possibly a brain tumor. Dogs know things. Their noses are somewhere on the order of 500 times more sensitive than our noses, and that means if you measured intelligence by olfactory sense alone, dogs would be off-the-scale geniuses, and we would all have special needs. So anyway, Buddy's just lying there on this rug in the Oval Office, the rug with the presidential seal on it, and I'm just scratching him behind the ears, and the president comes in curious to meet us, and Buddy pees all over the rug. Instinctively, I roll Buddy over onto his back, and taking the alpha dog position practically on top of him, I say, "No, Buddy, bad dog." The president looks at me and says, "Thank you. I'll have to get someone in here to clean that up. He's always piddling on that rug." It takes me a second or two to realize that the president is talking to me. Up until that moment, I'd never been spoken to by someone who happened to be the president. Not to mention that he just said the word piddling. We all shake hands with him, and we chat about Buddy, and I tell him that I have an uncle who used to raise chocolate labs, and how they're a soft-mouthed breed and big-hearted and smart and loyal and good with kids. And then we chat for a little while about Washington's cherry blossoms in bloom and about our show. And then someone comes in to clean up after Buddy, and the president politely ushers us out of the Oval Office, shakes our hands, and says goodbye. About 3 weeks later, back in LA, I get a phone call from the president. At first, I think this is a joke. You know, one of my friends is prank calling me with, "This is the White House with the president calling for Rick Cleveland." But the next thing I know, the president comes on the line, and I realize it's really him. He says, "Hey, Rick, it's me, Bill. I'm coming out to California next week to look at some houses in Malibu, and I'm bringing Buddy with me, and I wondered if you could recommend a dog-friendly beach I could take him to." I say, "Mr. President, I'm pretty sure that if you want to take Buddy for a walk on the beach, you'll be able to walk him on just about any beach you want." He says, "You know how much trouble I've gotten into in the last year or two. The last thing I need right now is a picture of me in every newspaper illegally walking my dog on some no dogs allowed beach." And then he says, "I'd ask David Geffen. He's got a place in Malibu, but right now he's sort of on my shit list." The president just said the word shit list to me. I start to tell him about this little stretch of beach I know of just north of Point Dume. I'm not entirely sure it's legally a dog-friendly beach, and it's not easy to get to, but it's where I take my golden Sherlock all the time, and so far, we've never gotten busted. And that's when he says, "That sounds perfect. Why don't you, and what's your dog's name? Sherlock? Why don't you join us? We'll be in town next week. How about Thursday after lunch?" So I say, "Okay." And he says, "I'll have someone from my office call you to firm things up." And then he says goodbye and hangs up. My dad was an alcoholic bus driver, and my mom was a drill press operator in a screw factory, and I flunked out of the 11th grade the first time from smoking too much pot and ditching school. And now here it is 20 plus years later, and I have a date to go for a dog walk on the beach with the fucking President of the United States of America. On Monday morning, I get a call from someone who identifies himself as Special Agent Dietrich from the Los Angeles office of the United States Secret Service. He asks me for my Social Security and driver's license number so they can run a routine security clearance on me. And then he tells me they already have specific directions to both our house and the stretch of beach I would be taking the president and his dog to, including current satellite photos of both locations. The next day, 3 jet black Chevy Suburbans full of Secret Service agents come to our house in Topanga Canyon, and these guys, there must be 12 of them, survey everything in sight. The yard, underneath the deck, and every single bathroom and closet in every single room of the house, including the attic. On Thursday, the president's motorcade pulls up my driveway. The president knocks on our front door, and I introduce him to my wife, Mary, and our 3 kids. Mary asks him if she can take his picture, and he hands her camera to one of the Secret Service guys. Just before he takes our picture, the president puts his arm around Mary, who is holding our son, Gus. That picture is now stuck to our refrigerator with a Spider-Man magnet. The president and I sit in the back of one of the limos facing forward. Special Agent Dietrich sits across from us next to another Secret Service agent, Special Agent Pogue, and they're both wearing sunglasses. Buddy and Sherlock sit on either side of them with their noses sticking out the windows. I get the feeling that Special Agent Pogue doesn't like having the windows open, but the president clearly wants the dogs to enjoy the ride. At one point, the president nudges me with his elbow and says, "I don't like traveling this way. Believe me, I find all these so-called precautions to be a pain in the ass. It's one of the things I look forward to when this term is over. Hell, someday it's just going to be me and Buddy in a pickup truck." I ask, "What about Hillary?" Hillary hates pickup trucks. We get to the beach about 20 minutes later, and by the time our motorcade pulls in, there are a handful of people standing around waiting to see the president. He smiles and waves a friendly wave, and then Special Agent Pogue hands him a brown leather leash, and I say, we won't need that." "That's okay, Dave," the president says. "If Rick says we won't need a leash, then we won't need a leash." Sherlock and Buddy are already halfway across the sand to the water. I don't know if Buddy's ever been in the ocean before that day, but Sherlock has, and that's where he's headed. Swimming for Sherlock is like crack cocaine for people who really, really like crack cocaine. He'll swim for hours on end, and when you finally coax him out of the water, he'll drop whatever it is he's been fetching at your feet, a tennis ball or a stick or a frisbee, and he'll whine and bark and woof, and his legs will shake like he has palsy. So Sherlock hits the water, gets swamped by a rolling wave, pushes past the breakers, and just starts swimming in tight circles looking for whatever it is he's supposed to fetch. I pull a tennis ball out of my jacket pocket, and by the time I'm ready to throw it, Sherlock is already out of the water and staring at it like it's a loaded crack pipe. I throw the ball hard, and Sherlock dives in after it. He swims out, grabs the ball, swims back, and drops the now soggy tennis ball at my feet. I toss the ball to the president. He throws it, and Sherlock dives in after it. This time when he comes out, he drops the ball at the president's feet. By then, he's taken his shoes and socks off, and Special Agent Pogue, Dave, is holding them.